The nurse told me my husband had regained consciousness, her voice soft with what I mistook for professional sympathy. But before I could reach him, before I could touch his hand or whisper my relief, she leaned down and kissed him not on the forehead like a caregiver might, but on the lips, slow and deliberate, like I wasn't even standing there, like I wasn't his wife, in that sterile hospital room at 2:43 a.m., watching her lips claim what was mine. I became someone else entirely, someone who doesn't cry, someone who sharpens. My name is Emily Warren, and until that October evening, I believed my life in Ridgehaven, Colorado, was everything I'd carefully built it to be. 32 years old, married for 7 years to Michael, living in our craftsman home with its view of the mountains, I had no reason to suspect the foundation was already cracking beneath me. That night started like countless others. The kitchen smelled of rosemary and lemon from the chicken I was roasting, Michael's favorite. I'd set the table with the good plates, the ones we'd received as wedding gifts and rarely used. He'd been pulling extra shifts at North Crest Wellness Clinic, where he worked as a physical therapist, and I wanted to surprise him with something special, something that said I noticed his hard work, that I appreciated the life we were building together. 6:30 came and went, then 7. The chicken grew cold on the counter, the candles I'd lit pooling wax onto the tablecloth. Michael was often late occupational hazard of working in healthcare. He always said so I wasn't worried. Not yet. I wrapped the food, cleaned the dishes, and settled onto the couch with a book, my phone beside me. At 9:17 p.m., it rang. "Is this Mrs. Warren?" The voice was professional, detached in that particular way that makes your stomach drop before you even know why. "Yes, this is St. Mary's Hospital. Your husband has been in an accident. You should come right away." The drive to the hospital exists in fragments in my memory, red lights that seemed endless, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached, the radio playing some pop song that felt obscene in its cheerfulness. I remember thinking, absurdly, about the chicken still sitting on the counter, as if that mattered at all. St. Mary's Hospital at night is a different creature than during the day. The fluorescent lights feel harsher, casting everything in a cold, unforgiving white. The smell of disinfectant is sharper, mixing with something else fear, maybe, or grief, if those things have a scent. My footsteps echoed too loudly in the corridors as I half walked, half ran to the reception desk. "Michael Warren," I gasped. "He was brought in an accident." The receptionist's fingers clicked across her keyboard with maddening slowness. "Room 247, second floor, turn right from the elevators." The elevator ride felt like drowning in reverse, being pulled up when every cell in my body wanted to sink. When the doors opened, I saw her immediately, a young nurse with auburn hair pulled into a perfect ponytail, standing outside room 247 like she'd been waiting for me. "Mrs. Warren." Her voice was honeyed, sympathetic. She wore scrubs that somehow looked tailored, her badge reading, "Haley Grant, RN. I've been taking care of your husband." There was something in the way she said "your husband," a subtle emphasis on "your," that I would only understand later. At the time, I was too desperate to notice. "How is he?" "What happened?" "He was hit by a car in the clinic parking lot. The driver was texting." She touched my arm, a gesture that should have been comforting but felt oddly possessive. "He has a concussion and some broken ribs, but he's stable. He just regained consciousness about an hour ago." Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to lean against the wall. "Can I see him?" "Of course." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "He's been asking for you." Another lie. I would learn later. He hadn't asked for me at all. She pushed open the door, and there he was, my Michael, looking smaller somehow in the hospital bed, his dark hair matted with dried blood, a bandage wrapped around his head. The machines beside him beeped steadily, reassuringly. I started toward him, my vision blurring with tears I'd been holding back since the phone call, but Haley moved faster, Before I could reach the bed, before I could take his hand or tell him I loved him, she leaned over him with a familiarity that made my blood freeze. Her hand cupped his face, not clinically, not professionally, but tenderly, intimately. "I'm right here, baby," she whispered, and then she kissed him. Not a peck, not a mistake. A real kiss, slow and deep, the kind that speaks of history, of secrets, of countless stolen moments. The kind of kiss I'd given him that very morning before he left for work. The world stopped. The beeping machines, the fluorescent hum, my own heartbeat. Everything went silent except for the sound of that kiss, wet and wrong in the sterile air. When she finally pulled away, she noticed me standing there, frozen in the doorway like a ghost in my own life, and she smiled, not with embarrassment or surprise, but with a victor's satisfaction, as if she'd been waiting for this moment, as if she'd orchestrated it. Michael's eyes fluttered open then, groggy and unfocused. He saw her first, and his face. God. His face softened with such naked affection that I felt my knees buckle. "Haley," he murmured, reaching for her hand. Only then did he notice me. The silence that followed stretched like a taut wire between us, ready to snap. Michael's hand, which had been reaching for Haley, froze mid-air. His eyes, those green eyes I'd fallen in love with 10 years ago, widened with the particular panic of a man caught in the exact moment his two worlds collide. "Emily." His voice cracked on my name, turning it into something foreign. I stood perfectly still, my body somehow separate from the screaming in my head. Every cell wanted to lunge forward, to grab that woman by her perfect ponytail and demand answers. But something deeper, some survival instinct I didn't know I possessed, kept me rooted in place, watching, processing, filing away every detail like evidence. "You should probably explain this to your wife," Haley said, adjusting his pillow with casual intimacy. She wasn't nervous, wasn't apologetic. If anything, she seemed amused, like this was all playing out exactly as she'd planned. "Get out!" My voice came out steady, controlled, nothing like the chaos inside me. She tilted her head, studying me with the detached interest of someone examining a specimen. "I'm his nurse. I need to check his vitals." "Get out! Emily, please!" Michael tried to sit up, winced, fell back against the pillows. "Don't!" I held up my hand without looking at him. I couldn't look at him. If I did, I might shatter entirely. "Just don't." Haley shrugged, picked up his chart with deliberate slowness. "I'll give you two some privacy, but I'll be right outside if you need anything. Michael." She emphasized his name like she was marking territory, then glided past me, leaving behind the scent of vanilla perfume that didn't belong in a hospital. The door clicked shut, and suddenly the room felt too small, the walls pressing in. Michael was trying to speak, his mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water, but I couldn't hear him over the roaring in my ears. "How long?" The question escaped before I could stop it. "Emily, I can explain. How long?" He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the guilt there told me everything. 4 months. 4 months. Summer into fall. All those extra shifts. The new cologne I'd noticed but hadn't questioned. The way he'd started keeping his phone face down at dinner. The conferences in Denver. I asked, though I already knew. There was no conference in September. Each word was a knife, precise and clean. I'd driven him to the airport, kissed him goodbye, told him to have a safe flight. She was on duty when I got hurt playing basketball at the clinic gym. She took care of me, and we just talked. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. I finally looked at him. Really looked. Even bruised and bandaged. He was still beautiful in that casual way that had always made other women notice him. But now I saw something else, weakness. It happened over and over for 4 months. I was going to end it. The laugh that escaped me was bitter, sharp enough to cut. How, when, after she kissed you in front of your wife, after you reached for her hand instead of mine. I love you, Emily. No. The word came out with such finality that he flinched. You don't get to say that. Not anymore. I turned toward the door, my legs somehow supporting me despite feeling like water. Where are you going? The panic in his voice was real now. Good. Away from you. Emily, wait. Please, we can fix this. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. I paused at the door, my hand on the handle. Outside, I could see Haley through the small window, leaning against the nurse's station, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world, like she hadn't just detonated a bomb in my life. You called her name, I said without turning around. When you woke up, you called her name, not mine. I was confused. The medication, stop. I turned to face him one last time. Just stop. Every word you say makes it worse. His face crumpled then, tears sliding down his cheeks, and for a moment I saw the man I'd married, the one who'd cried at our wedding, who'd held my hand through my father's funeral, who'd promised to choose me every day for the rest of our lives. But that man was a ghost now, replaced by this stranger in a hospital bed who'd given away pieces of himself to someone else, someone younger, prettier, someone who wasn't worn down by 7 years of marriage and mortgage payments and the mundane rhythm of shared life. I'm staying at a hotel tonight, I said. We'll talk about the rest later. Emily. But I was already gone, pushing through the door, past Haley who called out something I didn't stop to hear, past the nurses and the fluorescent lights and the smell of disinfectant, down the elevator and through the lobby and into the October night where I could finally breathe. I made it to my car before the shaking started. My hands trembled so violently I couldn't get the key in the ignition, but I didn't cry, not one tear. Something inside me had crystallized in that hospital room, hard and sharp and cold. They thought they'd broken me. They had no idea what they'd created instead. The Hampton Inn downtown became my refuge, though refuge seems too gentle a word for what I was doing there. I wasn't hiding. I was transforming. Michael called 17 times that first night. Each ringtone felt like a plea I refused to acknowledge. By morning, there were 32 missed calls and a cascade of text messages that evolved from apologetic to desperate to angry and back to pleading. I read every one with the clinical detachment of a researcher studying a virus. Please come home. We need to talk. It meant nothing. You mean everything to me. Don't throw away 7 years. I'm so sorry. Please answer. I love you. That last one, sent at 4:12 a.m., almost made me laugh. Love. As if he knew what that word meant anymore. On day 3, Haley started posting on Instagram. She was smart enough not to mention Michael directly, but the subtext was clear to anyone paying attention. A selfie with the caption, "Sometimes the best things come from unexpected places." A photo of 2 coffee cups with morning rituals with my favorite person. The location tags were careful, never the hospital, never his name. But I recognized the cafe near North Crest Wellness Clinic where Michael always got his morning coffee. I screenshot everything. The interesting thing about Betrayal is how it sharpens your vision. Suddenly, I could see patterns I'd been blind to before. The credit card statements showed charges at that same cafe, always 2 drinks, 2 pastries. The timing of his late meetings coincided perfectly with Haley's shift schedule, which I found posted publicly on the clinic's website. Even our shared Google Calendar told a story in hindsight the days he'd been distant, irritable, or unusually affectionate all aligned with something a fight with her, perhaps, or a particularly good day together. I became a detective of my own life, excavating the truth from beneath 4 months of lies. On day 5, Michael was discharged. He went home to our empty house, and the texts shifted tone. "Your things are here waiting for you." The house feels wrong without you. Please don't let her win. That one made me sit up in my hotel bed. Let her win, as if this was a game where someone could claim victory, as if he was the prize either of us were fighting for. But then James Rodriguez called. James worked with Michael at the clinic, one of the few people there I'd considered a friend. We'd had him and his wife over for dinner multiple times. Our kids played together. "Emily, I'm so sorry," he said without preamble when I answered. "I should have told you." The weight of those words settled over me like a shroud. You knew. Everyone knew. I'm not proud of it. But Michael's my colleague. I thought it wasn't my place. Everyone knew, I repeated, tasting the words like poison. They weren't subtle. The way they looked at each other in meetings, the lunches, the inside jokes. HR even had an informal conversation with them about maintaining professionalism. I gripped the phone tighter. HR knew. Nothing official. But Emily. He paused, and I could hear his discomfort through the phone. The holiday party is next month. They were planning to... I heard them discussing how to handle it, whether to come together or separately. The holiday party, the one I'd already bought a dress for, the one where I'd smiled and made small talk with people who'd known my husband was cheating on me, who'd watched me play the fool for 4 months. "Thank you for telling me," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "If there's anything you need..." Actually, there is. An idea was forming, crystalline and perfect. "Can you send me the shift schedules for the next month and any emails or communications about their informal warning from HR? Silence. Then, that could get me in trouble. James, you watched me serve you dinner in my home while everyone at that table knew my husband was sleeping with his nurse. You owe me this." He sighed. "I'll see what I can do." After hanging up, I sat in that sterile hotel room and felt something shift inside me. The pain was still there, sharp and constant like a broken rib, but something else was growing around it. Not healing, it was too soon for that. This was different. This was purpose. I pulled out my laptop and created a new folder, Evidence. Inside, I made subfolders, Financial, Social Media, Witnesses, Timeline. Then I called in sick to work. I was a marketing director at a tech firm, a job that suddenly seemed to belong to a different person's life, and began my real work. By day 7, I had constructed a detailed timeline of their affair. Every receipt, every Instagram post, every late night at work, mapped out with obsessive precision. I knew which hotels they'd used, 3 different ones, all paid for with our joint credit card. I knew when they'd first kissed August 15th, according to a particularly nauseating text exchange I'd found on our shared tablet. I knew that she'd been in our house at least twice when I was visiting my mother in Phoenix. Our house. Our bed. That knowledge burned, but I held on to it, fed it, let it forge me into something harder. Michael's texts had stopped. Haley's social media went quiet. They were regrouping, probably on his lawyer's advice. But I wasn't done. I was just getting started. I opened a new browser tab and searched for Medical Ethics Violations Colorado. Then, Nurse-Patient Relationship Inappropriate. Then, Professional Licensing Board Complaints. Outside my hotel window, Ridgehaven was settling into evening, the mountains turning purple in the dying light. Somewhere out there, Michael and Haley were probably together, comforting each other, painting me as the unreasonable wife who couldn't accept that love simply happened sometimes. Let them. They had no idea what was coming. Marissa Cole's law office occupied the top floor of a glass building in downtown Denver, all clean lines and spectacular views of the Rockies. I'd known Marissa since college. We'd been roommates before she went to law school and I went into marketing. Now she specialized in healthcare law and professional ethics violations, which felt like cosmic alignment. "Emily," she said, rising from behind her desk when her assistant showed me in. "I'm so sorry about everything." I'd given her the broad strokes over the phone, but now I laid out everything: the timeline, the evidence, the folder I'd compiled with obsessive precision. She reviewed it all with the focused intensity that had made her one of the best lawyers in Colorado. occasionally making notes on her legal pad. "You want to destroy them," she said finally. Not a question, but a statement. "I want justice." She leaned back, studying me. Justice and destruction aren't mutually exclusive. But we need to be smart about this. What's your goal? Divorce settlement, emotional damages, professional consequences, all of it. A small smile played at her lips. The Emily I knew in college would have cried for weeks and forgiven him. That Emily is dead? Good. She wouldn't survive what we're about to do. Marissa pulled up something on her computer. "Here's what people don't understand about medical professionals and ethics violations. The boards take this seriously. A nurse engaging in a romantic relationship with a patient under her care isn't just unprofessional, it's a violation of the fundamental trust underlying medical care. But Michael wasn't her patient initially. He works at the clinic. Doesn't matter. The moment she provided medical care for his injury and then continued the relationship, she crossed a line. And if they were already involved when she treated him..." She trailed off, tapping her pen against the desk. "That's even worse. It shows a pattern of boundary violations." I thought about Haley's casual confidence in that hospital room, the way she'd kissed him like I wasn't even there. "What do you need from me?" "Everything. Every piece of evidence. Every witness who might have seen them together. But Emily, I need you to understand something." She fixed me with her lawyer stare, the one I remembered from college when she was trying to talk me out of bad decisions. "Once we start this process, there's no taking it back. Her nursing license will be under review. Her career could be over. And Michael, while he won't face professional consequences, this will become part of your divorce proceedings. It will get ugly." "It's already ugly." "It'll get worse. They'll paint you as a vindictive ex-wife. They'll say you're using the system to punish a woman for falling in love." I laughed, short and bitter. Falling in love. She targeted him, a married man with good insurance and a stable job. She knew exactly what she was doing. "Can you prove that..." I thought about James's call, about the HR warnings, about the systematic way she'd inserted herself into his life. "I'm working on it." Marissa nodded. "Then we proceed, but smart. Strategic, like a chess game, not a bar fight." Over the next 2 hours, we mapped out the strategy. First, the divorce filing Colorado was a no-fault state, but the evidence of infidelity would matter for asset division. Second, the formal complaint to the Colorado State Board of Nursing. Third, a report to North Crest Wellness Clinic's administration about the ethical violations occurring under their roof. "We file everything simultaneously," Marissa explained. "Maximum impact. No time for them to coordinate their response." "When?" "You need more evidence first. The board will want documentation, witness statements, a clear pattern of behavior. And Emily..." She hesitated. "You need to be prepared for Michael to beg. When he realizes what's happening, he'll promise anything to make it stop. He can promise all he wants." She studied me for a long moment. "You've changed." I had to. That evening, I met with James Rodriguez at a coffee shop far from the clinic. He slid a thumb drive across the table like we were in a spy movie, which would have been funny if everything wasn't so surreal. "Shift schedules for the last 6 months," he said quietly. "And 3 emails from HR about maintaining professional boundaries. Nothing official, but enough to show the clinic knew there was a situation." "Thank you. There's more." He glanced around nervously. 2 other nurses have noticed things. Sarah Williams saw them in the supply closet 2 weeks ago. Not kissing, but close. Too close. And Beth Martinez says Haley's been taking extended breaks that coincide with Michael's therapy sessions. I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app. Will they provide statements? Sarah might. She's been uncomfortable with the situation. Beth, I don't know. She and Haley are friends. But she told you about the breaks. After 3 drinks at happy hour, she thought it was romantic. He shook his head. Emily, I really am sorry. We should have said something. Yes, I agreed. You should have. He flinched, but I was past caring about other people's comfort. That night, back in my hotel room. I compiled everything James had given me. The shift schedules were damning. Haley had switched shifts 17 times in 4 months, always to align with Michael's schedule. The HR emails were vague but concerning, referring to reports of inappropriate familiarity and reminders about professional conduct. My phone buzzed. Michael again, the landlord called. "You haven't been to the apartment. Where are you staying? We need to talk about bills, responsibilities. You can't just disappear." I almost responded. Almost told him exactly where he could shove his bills and responsibilities. But Marissa's voice echoed in my head. Strategic, like chess. Instead, I typed a single line. "My lawyer will be in touch." Then I went back to building my case, brick by methodical brick, each piece of evidence another nail in the coffin of Haley Grant's career. She thought she'd won when she kissed my husband in front of me. She had no idea that was the moment she'd lost everything. The invitation went out 2 weeks before the event. Elegant cream cardstock with gold embossing. "Please join us for an evening of gratitude and healing." I'd rented the private dining room at the Meridian, Ridgehaven's most upscale restaurant, the one where Michael had proposed 8 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. The guest list was carefully curated. Michael's parents, Robert and Diana, who still believed their son could do no wrong. His sister Catherine, who'd always been cool toward me. 3 couples from the clinic who'd known about the affair, James Rodriguez and his wife, 2 of my closest friends who'd stood by me through the aftermath, and of course, Michael and Haley, though their invitations were delivered separately, maintaining the illusion that I didn't know they were practically living together in our house. Michael called within an hour of receiving his invitation. "What is this?" "Emily." "A thank you dinner," I said, my voice warm as honey. "For everyone who supported us during your recovery. Us, you, specifically. I want to show there are no hard feelings." Silence. Then, suspicious. "Why would you do that?" "Because I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of therapy." The therapy part was true. I'd seen Dr. Patricia Brennan 3 times, mainly to document my emotional distress for the lawsuit. I realize anger isn't helping anyone. We need closure. Michael. All of us. "Does this mean you're ready to talk about the divorce?" "Let's get through dinner first. One step at a time." He wanted to believe it. I could hear it in his voice, the hope that maybe this could all be smoothed over, that he could somehow have both his marriage and his mistress, or at least escape without consequences. Haley was harder to convince. She called from a blocked number 3 days later. "I know what you're doing," she said without preamble. "Hello, Haley. I assume you received the invitation. You're trying to humiliate us." "Actually, I'm trying to move forward. My therapist says forgiveness is essential for healing." I paused, let her stew in the silence. "Unless you're afraid to face me in a social setting." "I'm not afraid of you." "Then you'll come. 7:30 p.m. November 15th. Cocktail attire." She hung up, but I knew she'd be there. She couldn't resist the chance to claim her victory publicly, to sit at the same table as Michael's family and establish herself as his new reality. The night of the dinner. I arrived early. I wore the black Diane von Furstenberg dress I'd bought for our anniversary, the one Michael had never seen because he'd been with her that night. My hair was professionally styled, my makeup flawless. I looked like a woman in complete control, which was exactly what I was. The private dining room was perfect intimate but not claustrophobic, with soft lighting and a view of the city lights. I'd arranged the seating carefully, Michael's parents at my right and left, Haley directly across from me where I could watch her every move. Robert and Diana arrived first, embracing me warmly. "Emily, darling, you look wonderful," Diana said, though her eyes were concerned. "This is so gracious of you. After everything." "Family is complicated," I said, squeezing her hand. "But it's still family." The others trickled in, my friends giving me subtle looks of support. The clinic couples clearly uncomfortable. James shooting me warning glances that I pretended not to see. Michael and Haley arrived separately but within minutes of each other, fooling no one. He looked gaunt, stressed, wearing the Tom Ford suit I'd bought him last Christmas. She wore a red dress that was just tasteful enough for the occasion but still screamed, "Notice me." She'd done something new with her hair, lighter highlights that caught the light. "Thank you all for coming," I said once everyone was seated, raising my glass of Chablis. "I know the last few weeks have been challenging, but I wanted to gather the people who mean the most to us to Michael to express my gratitude for your support during his recovery." Michael's parents beamed. Haley shifted in her seat, trying to parse my angle. The first course arrived butternut squash soup with truffle oil, Michael's favorite. "Emily," Robert said, "Michael tells us you've been staying elsewhere. We hope you two can work through this difficult time." I smiled, serene. "Actually, Robert, I've been taking some time for self-reflection, about boundaries, about integrity, about what it means to trust someone with your life." Haley's spoon clinked against her bowl. "Those are such important values," Diana agreed, oblivious to the undercurrent. "The foundation of any relationship, really." "Exactly!" I turned my gaze to Haley. "Don't you think so?" "Haley, as a healthcare professional, you must have strong feelings about trust and boundaries." Her jaw tightened. "Of course. I've been reading about medical ethics lately." I continued conversationally. "Fascinating stuff. The Nightingale Pledge, the ANA Code of Ethics, the sacred trust between caregiver and patient." Michael's hand reached for his water glass, knuckles white. "Such a noble profession," I said. "Taking care of people when they're at their most vulnerable. It requires such integrity." The main course arrived filet mignon with roasted vegetables. I'd made sure to order Michael's medium rare, Haley's well done, a detail that made her eyes narrow when the server knew without asking. Catherine, Michael's sister, tried to change the subject. "So, Emily, how's work been?" "Enlightening. I've been working on a campaign about professional accountability. You know, how actions have consequences, even when people think no one's watching." I smiled at the clinic couples. "I'm sure you all understand that, working in healthcare." Sarah Williams, the nurse who'd seen them in the supply closet, wouldn't meet my eyes. Her husband looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. "Emily," Michael said, a warning in his voice. "Yes, darling." The endearment was a knife, and we both knew it. Diana looked between us, finally sensing the tension. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's perfect," I said, raising my glass again. "In fact, I have an announcement to make. But let's wait for dessert. The best revelations are always sweeter with chocolate." Haley's face had gone pale. Michael was texting under the table, probably to his lawyer, but they both stayed in their seats. They thought they knew what was coming, a scene. Tears, maybe some thrown wine. They had no idea. The dessert course was crème brûlée, the sugar crust perfectly caramelized, golden and ready to shatter at the slightest pressure. Just like everything else at this table. I stood slowly, deliberately, letting the soft clink of my spoon against the champagne flute draw every eye in the room. The private dining room fell silent. Even the soft jazz from the speakers seemed to fade. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice clear and steady. "These past few weeks have taught me so much about strength, about resilience, and most importantly, about the value of professional boundaries and personal integrity." Michael's jaw clenched. Haley's fingers gripped her dessert fork like a weapon. When Michael had his accident, I was terrified, but the medical professionals at St. Mary's Hospital were incredible. They understood that caring for someone requires not just skill, but ethics, clear boundaries between caregivers and those in their care. I clicked a button on my phone, and the large screen I'd arranged to have installed that afternoon flickered to life behind me. The first slide appeared a photo of the ANA Code of Ethics, Provision 2.3 highlighted in yellow. "The nurse's primary commitment is to the patient," I read aloud. "Professional boundaries must be established and maintained." "Emily, what are you doing?" Michael started to rise. but his father's hand on his arm stopped him. "I'm sharing something educational, darling. Please, sit." The next slide, a screenshot of text messages. Michael's phone number was partially visible at the top. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m., August 15th. "Miss you already? Can't wait until tomorrow's session. H. God, you're all I think about. M. Your wife doesn't deserve you. H." Diana gasped. Robert's face went stone cold. "These were sent," I said conversationally, "while Michael was supposedly at a late-night staff meeting. Haley was actually on shift at the clinic that night. On the clock. Being paid to work while sexting my husband." "You went through my phone?" Michael's voice cracked. "Our shared tablet, actually. The one linked to your messages. Remember when you insisted we sync everything for transparency?" Click. Next slide, security footage from the clinic parking lot, dated September 20th. Grainy but clear enough, two figures in an embrace beside Michael's BMW. This is from Northcrest Wellness Clinic's own security system. That's the staff parking lot. That's during work hours. Sarah Williams was staring at Haley with undisguised disgust. Her husband whispered something about leaving, but she shook her head, transfixed. Click. Financial records. Hotel charges. 2 receipts for the same timestamps. The Marriott downtown, August 28th. Charged to our joint American Express. Room service for 2. Champagne. I smiled at Haley. Dom Perignon. "You have expensive taste for a nurse." "This is harassment," Haley said, her voice shaking. "I could sue you." "For what, showing truthful documents to a private gathering?" I tilted my head. "Besides, you should be more concerned about the State Board of Nursing's opinion than mine." Click. The formal complaint form, already filled out. "Did you know?" I said, addressing the room but looking straight at Haley. "That engaging in a sexual relationship with a patient under your care is grounds for license suspension. Even if the relationship started before the medical care, continuing it during and after treatment shows a catastrophic lapse in professional judgment. He wasn't my patient when you what?" I pounced on her admission. "When you started fucking him? Please, tell everyone exactly when that was. Because according to the shift records, you provided medical care for his basketball injury on July 10th. And according to these messages, you were already involved by then." Catherine covered her mouth. Diana was crying silently. Robert's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. "You set us up," Michael said, realization dawning. "This whole dinner was a gift," I finished. "To your parents, to your colleagues, to everyone you both lied to for months. They deserved to know exactly who they were protecting." Click. An email from James Rodriguez to HR, dated October 1st, expressing concerns about inappropriate behavior between staff members. "Even your colleagues knew something was wrong, but instead of addressing it, the clinic just gave you both a friendly warning. Well, I'm sure the Joint Commission will be very interested in that failure of oversight." "Stop." Michael stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "Emily, please, you've made your point." "Have I asked. Because I don't think Haley understands yet. She still thinks she won something." I clicked to the final slide. It was a photo from Haley's own Instagram, posted just 3 days ago. Her and Michael at our kitchen table, my kitchen table having breakfast. The caption read, "Home is where the heart is." "That's my grandmother's china," I said quietly. "Those are my kitchen curtains in the background. That's the table where Michael and I had dinner every night for 7 years. The room was tomb silent. But you're right, Haley. Home is where the heart is, and neither of you have one." I gathered my purse, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and placed it in front of Michael. "Divorce papers, already filed, along with copies of everything I've submitted to the State Board of Nursing, the clinic's administration, and the Joint Commission. My lawyer will be in touch about the house, though, given the evidence of infidelity and the dissipation of marital assets on your affair. I wouldn't plan on keeping it." I turned to Robert and Diana. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." "You deserved better from your son." Diana was sobbing openly now. Robert wouldn't even look at Michael. As for the rest of you, I addressed the clinic employees. You might want to update your resumes. Northcrest is about to be under investigation for failing to maintain professional standards. HR knew, administration knew, you all knew, and you did nothing. I walked toward the door, then paused, turning back one last time. The room looked like a bomb had gone off. Diana crying, Robert's fists clenched, Catherine staring at her brother in horror. The clinic employees all on their phones, probably texting lawyers, and in the center of it all, Michael and Haley, exposed and isolated. "Oh, Haley," I said sweetly. "That red dress. It's the same one you wore in the photo from Michael's phone on September 3rd, the night he told me he was at a medical conference in Denver. You really should vary your wardrobe more. It makes creating timelines so much easier." The silence that followed my revelation about the red dress was exquisite, a held breath before the storm. Haley's face had gone from pale to ashen, her carefully applied makeup standing out like paint on a corpse. "You've been stalking us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Stalking." I laughed, the sound sharp and bright in the hushed room. "No, dear. I've been documenting. There's a difference. Stalking is what you did to my marriage, lurking around the edges, waiting for your moment, inserting yourself piece by piece until you thought you'd replaced me." I pulled out my phone, swiping to one more photo I hadn't put in the presentation. "This is from your nursing school graduation, posted on your Facebook 3 years ago. The caption says, 'Can't wait to find my perfect job and perfect man.' Well, congratulations, you found someone else's." Michael stepped forward. "Emily, that's enough. You've humiliated us. You've made your point. What more do you want? What more?" I turned to face him fully, and for the first time that night, I let him see the rage beneath my calm surface. "I want the 4 months of my life back. I want the trust you shattered. I want to not know what it feels like to be the last person in a room to know my husband is fucking someone else." Diana made a sound like a wounded animal. Robert stood abruptly. "We're leaving," he announced, his voice arctic. He looked at Michael with such disappointment it could have cut glass. "Don't contact us until you've sorted out this mess you've made." "Dad, please." "You brought that woman into Emily's home." Robert's control finally snapped. "You ate at her table while carrying on with—" He gestured at Haley with disgust. "I didn't raise you to be this kind of man." Catherine stood too, grabbing her purse. "I'm taking Mom and Dad home." She looked at me, and for the first time in 7 years, there was warmth in her eyes. "Emily, I'm so sorry. We had no idea." As Michael's family filed out, the clinic employees started making their exits too, mumbling excuses, avoiding eye contact. Sarah Williams stopped beside me. "I'll provide that statement," she said quietly. "To the board. What they did. It's wrong." One by one they left, until it was just the 3 of us, the triangle that had destroyed everything. "You vindictive bitch," Haley spat, her composure finally cracking completely. "You've ruined my life." "No," I said calmly. "You ruined your life the moment you decided my husband was worth more than your career. The moment you decided your wants mattered more than professional ethics. The moment you kissed him in that hospital room while I watched." I pulled out a final document from my purse. "This is the email I received this afternoon from the Colorado State Board of Nursing. They've initiated a formal investigation. You'll be receiving your notice of hearing within 5 business days. I'd recommend getting a lawyer." Her hands shook as she read it. "This says, 'Immediate administrative suspension pending investigation.' Yes, you can't practice nursing in Colorado until this is resolved. And given the evidence I've provided, the photos, the testimony from your colleagues, the HR complaints, the security footage, well, I wouldn't plan on practicing nursing anywhere ever again." "You can't do this." She turned to Michael, grabbing his arm. "Tell her to stop this." Michael looked between us, and I saw the moment he realized the full scope of what was happening. "Emily, if you pursue this, she'll lose everything." Like I did. That's different. You're right. I agreed. It is different. I lost my marriage to betrayal. She's losing her career to her own violation of professional ethics. One is personal, the other is justice. I moved toward the door again, but Haley's voice stopped me. I'll fight this. I'll say you're lying, that you fabricated evidence. I'll claim you're a scorned wife trying to try it. I turned back one last time. I have 47 screenshots of your social media posts, 63 text messages between you two, credit card records, hotel receipts, security footage, witness statements from 5 of your colleagues. And I smiled. A recorded phone conversation where you admitted the relationship started before you treated him medically. Colorado is a one-party consent state for recordings. By the way, her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. But here's the thing, Haley, none of this had to happen. If you'd had an ounce of professionalism, an ounce of respect, an ounce of basic human decency, we wouldn't be here. If you'd kept your hands off my husband, or at least had the courtesy to wait until he was divorced, your career would be intact. I looked at both of them, these two people who'd destroyed my life and were now watching their own crumble. The formal complaint to North Crest Wellness Clinic was filed this morning. The Joint Commission has been notified about the facility's failure to maintain professional standards. The divorce papers include a forensic accounting of all marital assets you spent on your affair. Every hotel room, every dinner, every gift, it's all documented and will be recovered in the settlement. Michael sank into his chair. You planned all of this. Every detail, I confirmed. While you two were playing house in my home, I was building your reckoning. Why the dinner? He asked. Why the show? Because you both needed to understand something. I straightened my spine, lifted my chin. You didn't break me. You didn't win. You thought you were trading up, Haley getting a successful man with a nice house and a stable life. You thought you were getting a younger, more exciting woman, Michael. But all you did was reveal who you really are. And now everyone knows. I opened the door, pausing on the threshold. The house goes on the market Monday. Your things will be in storage by Friday. The locks have already been changed. Oh, and Haley, that nursing license suspension is effective immediately. I'd check with the restaurant about whether they're hiring, though you might want to omit me as a reference. The last thing I heard as the door closed behind me was the sound of Haley sobbing and Michael saying, "What have we done?" The November air was crisp and clean as I stepped outside. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe without feeling like my chest might crack open. They'd taken my trust, my marriage, my sense of security, but I'd taken everything else. And unlike them, I'd done it all completely within the law. The valet brought my car around, and I tipped him generously $20 for a 2-minute job. Why not? I'd just orchestrated the complete destruction of 2 lives over creme brulee. I could afford to be generous with strangers. I sat in my Mercedes for a moment, engine running, watching through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows as Michael and Haley remained frozen at the table, the wreckage of their choices scattered around them like shrapnel. The server approached them with a check I'd deliberately not paid. One last petty victory, and I saw Michael reach for his wallet with shaking hands. My phone buzzed. "Marissa." "How did it go?" "Exactly as planned?" "Good. The board confirmed receipt of all documents. Haley Grant's suspension is effective immediately. She'll be notified by certified mail tomorrow." "And the clinic, under review. James Rodriguez and 2 other employees have agreed to provide testimony. North Crest is looking at potential sanctions, mandatory ethics training, and a very public black eye." I shifted the car into drive. "Thank you, Marissa, for everything." "Emily." Her voice softened. "Are you okay? Really okay?" I considered the question. Was I okay? My marriage was over. My life as I'd known it was demolished. But for the first time since that night in the hospital, I felt something other than pain or rage. I felt free. "I'm getting there," I told her. The drive away from the Meridian took me through downtown Ridgehaven, past the coffee shop where Michael and I had our first date, past the park where he'd proposed, past the church where we'd married. Ghost locations now, landmarks of a life that no longer existed. I didn't drive to the Hampton Inn. Instead, I headed to the new apartment I'd leased 3 days ago, a modern loft on the other side of the city with floor-to-ceiling windows and no memories embedded in the walls. The boxes from storage were already there, waiting. Just my things. Nothing of his. As I parked in my designated spot, mine alone, my phone exploded with notifications. Word was already spreading through the Ridgehaven medical community. Haley's suspension would be public record by morning. The clinic investigation would make the healthcare blogs by noon. In a city this size, professional destruction traveled at the speed of gossip. Michael texted at 11:43 p.m. I hope you're satisfied. I deleted it without responding. Then another. She's devastated. Years of school, years of work, gone. Delete. You won. Is that what you wanted to hear? You won. I almost deleted that one too, but something made me respond. Just once. Just 3 words. I didn't win. Because winning would mean none of this had happened. Winning would mean my husband never betrayed me. Winning would mean I never had to become this version of myself, sharp and calculating and alone. But I hadn't lost either. Not anymore. I poured myself a glass of wine, a good Malbec I'd been saving for a special occasion, and stood at my new windows, looking out at the lights of Ridgehaven spread below. Somewhere out there, Haley was probably packing up her apartment, knowing she'd have to leave the state to find work, if she could work in healthcare at all. Somewhere. Michael was sitting in what used to be our house, surrounded by the remnants of our life together, finally understanding that actions have consequences. And somewhere, Diana and Robert Warren were coming to terms with who their son really was beneath the successful exterior. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Emily. The voice was hesitant, young. This is Beth Martinez. From the clinic I was at dinner tonight. What can I do for you, Beth? I wanted to apologize. I knew about them. Not everything, but enough. And I thought it was romantic. I actually told Haley once that it was like something out of a movie. She paused. I didn't think about you at all. The wife. You were just an obstacle in their love story. And now I realize you're a person. A real person who got destroyed while we all watched and said nothing. Her voice cracked. I'm going to testify to the board. What she did was wrong. What we all did by staying silent was wrong. Thank you, I said, and meant it. After she hung up, I sat in my new space, surrounded by boxes I'd eventually unpack, and felt the last of the anger drain away. Not forgiveness, I'd never forgive them, but the rage that had been fueling me for weeks finally burned itself out, leaving something quieter behind. Resolution, maybe, or just exhaustion. I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank document. Maybe someday I'd write about this. Maybe other women needed to know that you could survive betrayal without sacrificing your dignity, that you could fight back within the law, that you could destroy the people who destroyed you without becoming a monster yourself. Or maybe I'd just close this chapter entirely, lock it away with all the other things I'd never speak of again. My phone buzzed one last time. Michael again. The house smells like your perfume. Everything here reminds me of what I threw away. I'm so sorry. Emily, I'm so fucking sorry. This time, I didn't delete it. I read it twice, then set the phone aside. His sorry didn't matter anymore. His regret was as useless as his love had turned out to be. I raised my wine glass to the window. To my reflection barely visible in the dark glass, a woman I hardly recognized, but was learning to respect. I didn't ruin your life. I repeated my words from earlier, this time to myself. I just handed you the mirror. The wine was perfect, rich, and complex with just enough bite, just like revenge, when it's served exactly right. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. What would you have done in Emily's situation? Your perspectives and experiences make our community richer. Until next time, remember your story matters, your voice matters, and you're stronger than you know.